Well, as you can tell from the last song, we are in Advent. You feel as you sing, O come, Emmanuel, the yearning for something to come. And today, being the first Sunday of Advent, our exhortation is going to be on one of those themes of Advent. And what that theme is that we are going to talk about will become clear as we understand what Advent, the whole season of Advent, is remembering. Remember that calendars are communal memories. Calendars are community memories. And the calendars, whatever they are, whichever the one they are, tell us what to remember, and the church has things to remember. So what is Advent remembering? Well, just as Christmas is remembering Christ's birth, Advent, which comes before it, is the remembrance of waiting for that birth. It's remembering waiting for that birth. Or say it this way, just as Christmas is a celebration of the gospel's birth narratives, the Advent is a celebration of the entire Old Testament and waiting for that birth. In Colossians 2:17, it says that we should read the Old Testament this way. These are all things, shadows of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. So the Old Testament is always to be looking towards Christ. The whole Old Testament is aimed at Christ. Sure, remember, Eve is told about Jesus' birth in the Garden of Eden at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Genesis 3:15. So the Lord said to the serpent, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And he, the seed, shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. See, all the Old Testament exists between the promise of the seed that would crush the serpent and the child that was the seed placed in a manger to fulfill that promise. It all exists. All of the Old Testament exists between the promise given and the promise kept. The whole Old Testament exists between those two moments. So all of the Old Testament exists in waiting. And if that is so, then we need to make a case that God is not hasty. He is not slow, as some count slowness, 2 Peter 3:9, but trusting God, well, it takes a mighty amount of patience. Following the biblical timeline of genealogies from Eve to Mary and assuming no lacunae, no gaps in the genealogical records, then it took from that promise in the Garden of Eden, following the genealogies all the way to Mary, 4,000 years. 4,000 years. God promised, God fulfilled his promise, and the gap in between, 4,000 years. And everything in that 4,000 years pointed to Christ. And think about that. That would be an Advent calendar. You know, as you get Advent, you pull out the little doors. 4,000 years, 365 days a year. That would be an Advent calendar with 1,465 little doors to open before you get to the present. I mean, trusting God takes patience. Kids can barely handle the wait for Christmas, but that wait and that barely being able to wait is the point of Advent. Advent is the great lesson in patience. So, the question for you this morning is, how is your patience? Are you a patient person? Now, do you know how to receive a promise from God? Or could you not receive it because you could not handle the wait for him to fulfill it? In fact, isn't most of our sin simply grabbing at God's promises, not waiting for him to give them? Most lust is, most theft is, most substance abuse is, most scandals, most get-rich-quick schemes are, most revenge is not waiting on God, even most anger when it wants immediate vindication. But here is the wisdom of the prophet. Listen, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me, and he heard my cry. Psalm 41. So how is your patience? And this reminds us of our need to confess this morning. So hear this from Isaiah 66:2. For all those things my hand has made, and all those things exist, says the Lord, but on this one will I look, on him who is poor and of a contrite spirit, and who trembles at my word.